would be fun.
And we are back now, coming in. Hope you enjoyed those duct tapes. We got to see quite a catalog of them, as yeah, we were waiting a little while, but in the end, we did get our result. Astrea did take game number one. Apparently, he is up now in this series 1-0, this best of three semifinals, and so we are going to continue it now on Ancient Cistern. We're in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, spawning all the way in the bottom left-hand corner. We, of course, have our blue Protoss player coming out from the land of, I almost said Australia because of the name, but no, he's coming out from the land of America, representing Macherino Esports. We have Detective Max Angel himself, Astrea.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Ancient Cistern, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Zerg player representing the Kwangdong Freaks. It is soO.
It's been a while since I've been able to hear that name get thrown down, get introed as well. That team, I mean, the Kwangdong Freaks.
I think their only active players are soO and TY. I think soO and TY.
Yeah, I think Stats is more semi-active at the moment. I will see if that changes next GSL.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Ooh, as we are diving on in to bring you up to speed, if you were not able to catch summer game number one, it was not on this channel, it was over on the channel of Steadfast, the other English caster, as he has been covering the lower portion of the brackets. Game one was on Gressvan. As you can imagine, ZVPs on Gressvan, they usually go to late game. It was Skytoss against Zerg, against Broodlord, Infestor, Ling, Bailings all over the place. Despite it going to the late game, it was actually a very intense, a very active game. Both players were just constantly in each other's faces, almost non-stop.
Yeah, I remember seeing a lot of Banelings, I remember seeing a lot of Colossus, I remember seeing a lot of Roaches, and a lot of Storms, and yeah, it almost felt like both players stuck in the mid game for quite some time, but if I remember correctly, towards the end, Astrea was working on a little bit of a Skytoss army.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say kind of what we expect from soO. Anyway, he is a player who likes to stick with lair tech for as long as possible.
Exactly, and when soO, just to kind of wind it back to the last game, when soO was transitioning into Hive Tech, he actually rushed straight into Broodlords, and he didn't really have too much anti-air, as you can imagine. Like, he had a lot of Broodlords, and then the Skytoss shows up and so it didn't quite have
I was missing something.
Yeah, it didn't have the best answer to the Skytoss army of his opponents, but here we are in game two, a very different game, very different map. We're on Ancient Cistern, a large map, yes, but not as defensible as Gressvan.
Not quite. There are a lot more openings here, and a couple of fewer ramps as well. Well, no, there are more ramps, but, you know, the openings are much, much wider. Steps are going to sneak in, get a cheeky couple of drones, but not quite able to get a full scout here into soO's base.
Hey, just a couple of drone kills behind this. It is a Stargate opener from Astrea, so everything's looking very standard, very normal. Is going to be Oracle into a third base. So very economic out of Astrea. We can see soO is here to try to delay and disrupt the economy. Does dive on top of that weaken and soften up, but that does get the Adept.
And backs away. Will confirm the third base being thrown down by Astrea as well. This is going to be something that soO wants to punish.
Oh, it really is. soO is working towards that Evo chamber, so fast +1 melee should be on the way from soO. So just like how Astrea is opening up standard, so is soO as well, as he's just saturating his third base, working on his Evo chamber, and should be working on his tech momentarily as well once he is able to deflect the initial oracles.
Like so. Very well prepared is soO, with these queens right in position, and the spore crawlers getting up as well. These oracles are not going to be a bother, but these adepts are looking to do what the oracles could not.
Oh, exactly, as it looks like they commit to the shade. 2 drones already going to be going down as the adepts distract these queens. As they bring the queens down, we do have the oracles getting ready to dive into the main as well, so soO has to be very careful with how he splits up his army.
And this is about as well as you can split up in such a scenario. Oh, not if you're going to leave your queens out of position and your mineral line exposed. One Spore Crawler is not going to be enough to deter Max Angel here.
Yeah, 4 drones go down in the main base. The Adepts, most of them do make it back home in time as well to defend against the Ling counterattack. Lings are here, but units are in position. The third base is safe and sound.
And I gasped for a second there because Astrea is going for double robo.
Oh my god. Yeah, we have Immortals in production for now. We should be seeing a Robotics Bay. If we don't, I'm going to be very surprised, as typically we do see like things like double Robo Colossus production in this matchup to get into 2 and eventually 4 Colossi. If we commit to Immortals, this could be more of like a Showtime-esque composition with Immortals and Archons. And it is. I just realized that this Twilight Council is very delayed.
Yep. It is not for any gateway upgrades. It is only for Templar Archives and potentially a Dark Shrine as well. Those are really your 2 avenues, or only avenues, for going into Archons. And this is going to be a very beefy army out of Astrea. A couple of gateways do get thrown down just to make sure that he can get enough Templar to morph into Archons.
Yeah, exactly, as we have that Templar Archives immediately on the way. So to put things into context, Showtime does use this style very effectively. He's known as a very defensive player in this matchup, and he is willing to delay Blink and delay Charge in favor of a higher Immortal and a higher Archon count. It does mean that Astrea is less active in the early game. As we can see, like, there's no active Stalkers, or there's very few Oracles as well, as well, they do take a lot of hits. But in the mid game, that is when Astrea is going to be at his strongest, once he does get a really solid, beefy death ball of an army.
It is a very big risk, though, not being active on the map, because there we go. We don't see it too often from soO, but when he goes Hive as quickly as possible. This is a 7-minute Hive transition coming out from him. He is going to have his late game tech very, very soon, but it does also mean that Astrea has a huge window of opportunity now to catch soO while he's transitioning.
Yeah,
he's going to have a very beefy army to try to punish that.
Yeah, we'll see if he can catch him mid-transition. As you can see, soO, he's already got a Spire on the way. This could be for a Greater Spire. As soon as the Spire finishes, it's lined up with the Hive, so he can just rush into Broodlords, which would be a very potent kind of timing here for soO, especially considering that Astrea is stuck at home. He's getting into Phoenix production. It looks like Astrea has caught wind of this. As he dives in, he does get a Revelation on the Spire.
He knows he's going to have to take it seriously. It seems like he is anticipating Mutas still, based on what he's getting. I'm a little bit surprised that Astrea decided to dedicate resources to research Storm. But if you're going to go Archons, then I guess, and you have to spare and you have the minerals and gas to spare, then I guess there's really no reason not to get Storm.
Yeah, it's going to be Immortals, Archons, and Storm as well, so we don't have any other splash damage, like we don't have Disruptors or Colossi to work with. So yeah, going to be a very different army composition here out of Astrea. Meanwhile, soO, he's just cleaning up all these rocks. He's taking control of his side of the map. The Hive is done, the Spire is done, and show us that Greater Spire. Again, I'm really curious. There it is, straight into the Greater Spire.
Like so. No Corruptors just yet. soO is still taking the threat of a Protoss army very, very seriously. He doesn't want to get caught without any anti-ground damage. But once those Corruptors come into play, that's when soO will be putting his foot on the gas and never letting it go.
Yeah, it's also one of those things where the onus is now on Astrea. Like, he saw the Spire ahead of time. He needs a follow-up scout. He needs to figure out what is being done right now. He needs to figure out if there is a Greater Spire. Before that can even happen, soO is about to max out. He's being very active with his army. He's denying any kind of 5th base. He's containing Astrea to only 4 bases, but with this style of play, Astrea, he's happy to stay on 4 bases. Like, again, he's still turtling up. He's still amassing this army.
Yeah. It's almost like he's going for a bit of a death ball style, like we saw from Nice earlier today, but almost a bit of a budget death ball in a way.
Yeah,
I couldn't afford Colossus and Carriers, but you know what? Archons and Immortals.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
Ooh, as we have 2 Warp Prisms on the way for some multi-pronged harass. We have +1 air attack as well, so it looks like Astrea is getting ready for Sky Toss. It did work wonders for him in the previous game. It can work again. Zealot Rambai gets surrounded. Astrea is finally pushing out. As Astrea moves out, 10 Broodlords are on the way. And these Broodlords...
And once again, soO... Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, once again, soO doesn't have much anti-air, but then again, Astrea doesn't really have anything on the air right now. It's only 2 Phoenixes. But he is hoping to trade his ground army so that he can get to a bit of a beefier Skytoss army.
That's the thing, right? Skytoss isn't here yet. The Broodlords, they arrive just in time for this push, and there is no answer to the Broodlords. Immortals, Archons, Storms, they can't get in range. Lings and Roaches are coming from behind. They're trying to trap the army.
Yeah, good use of the Storm to zone away the Zerglings, but I don't think it's going to be enough. This army is slowly getting pushed back.
And the Broodlords are in hot pursuit as well. Now, these Blink Stalkers, they can be an answer. They can dive under the Broodlords, especially if there's nothing to support them on the ground. So, soO has to be careful. We have Lings and Roaches coming out from across the map. The Broodlords reveal themselves. They're diving on this, and looks like they may even get a High Templar.
Yeah, Templar are in position to get sniped. Broodlords don't have that much support, but here come the Lings. Coming to really mess up the zoning and the pathing of these Stalkers. Astrea even forced to storm himself a little bit.
Yeah, at the same time, Astrea, he snuck out all of his Immortals. He's going for a massive Immortal run by, which you almost never see. 9 Immortals here across the map. They take down a base. They could even take down another base as well if they're able to get into the natural.
It's absolutely insane. But it's really effective right now.
It really is. The Broodlords.
So many workers go down.
And the Broodlords, they take so long. They take so long to get back home. Meanwhile, the Stalkers are looking to maybe catch these Broodlords exposed.
And one of them will go down just like so. soO was looking so threatening for so long. But now Astrea is hitting back hard.
Yeah, and there it is. The Greater Spire gets focused down. 2-3 volleys. We recall the rest of the Immortals back home. The Broodlords once again are out of position because the Stalkers, they just took down 1 hatchery and they're looking for another.
They allow spine crawls here, but no support for them, so they will be going down. Once again, the Broodlords, they are a little bit faster than they were in the past, but not fast enough to really catch up with all of these Blink Stalkers.
Yeah, and even though soO was looking in a commanding position earlier when he was attacking with his Broodlords, defending with them not so much. He just lost 1, 2, 3 hatcheries and his Greater Spire as well. soO is hurting. He has a decent army here, but that's all he really has. I'm getting some like Nice versus Gumiho flashbacks, if you remember, on Gressman.
I do remember, yes. yeah, when Gumiho slowly picked apart Nice, and except now replace Gumiho with Astrea and replace Nice with soO.
Exactly, as here we go, we blink on forward here. The Broodlords are exposed. 2 of them go down instantly. We have a little bit of Roach Ravager on the ground. It looks like it is going to be enough to zone away the army of Astrea, but the Storms are here to support as well. Astrea backs up. At the same time, we do have another Immortal. The same Immortal run by. It's back.
All these Immortals, they didn't die earlier. And now Astrea is even working on a Fleet Beacon just to really round off his army. soO now getting a Lurker Den. Not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, he had to rebuild the Spire, which just finished, and waiting for the Greater Spire to finish is just going to take far too long. And here we go, Astrea once again, he catches the Broodlords and going down one after the other.
Transfuse is not going to be enough. GG is called. Astrea will be taking the series 2-0 to advance to the Grand Finals right after he snatches victory from the jaws of defeat.
Wow, gee. Go on.
Yeah, GG, very well played. It doesn't happen too often, but honestly, that game almost felt like a round of Mario Kart where you're heavily in the lead and all of a sudden somebody launches a blue shell. That was kind of what happened to soO there. And he was in a very commanding position, but he had one vulnerability that Astrea was so quick to identify and so decisive to punish.
So yeah, such a quirky vulnerability as well. Like, just to like re-emphasize and just kind of wind things back a little bit. soO initially correctly identified the weakness of Astrea, right? Like Astrea, he was not being active in the mid game or in the early to mid game or in mid game as well. Like he was taking up very quickly into Immortals, into High Templar, which meant that soO had a lot of breathing room. He had a lot of freedom to do whatever he wanted, and he was able to get into a fast hive. He was able to get to rush into a greater spire as well, and getting to those broodlords. Like the broodlord timing was so on point. That was beautiful out of soO, and that should have won him the game. And then Astrea realized, hold up, my immortals are useless right now. He raced back home. He was in the middle of his push. What if I go for an immortal run by, which you almost never see? But he had 9 immortals, and he sent them out with like 2 High Templar for storm support, and they were the MVPs.
The absolute MVP. I mean, they just drew everything back. You could see a little bit of panic in the movement of soO there. He was not expecting that at all. Nobody was expecting that. And he had to very quickly decide, do I commit to this push or do I pull back? And in the end, he pulled back, and that just gave Astrea enough breathing room to regather his forces, to pick off a couple of Brute Lords here and there while they were vulnerable. Think of anything, that game really shows why soO doesn't go hive.
Yeah, I mean, again, to be fair though, like it isn't like soO did anything wrong there. It's just that immortal counterattack really caught him off guard, and if it wasn't for that, then Astrea would have been in a lot of trouble. I don't know if Astrea would have been able to hold on to his 4th and even 3rd base, right? Like he was struggling to hold on. It's just that immortal counterattack did force a big reaction out of soO, and it was the beginning of the end for him. Like Astrea really did make some magic happen with that army composition. It was really well done by Astrea. Really, really well done just thinking on his feet as well. Yeah.
You gotta be thinking on your feet though when you're solving crimes in Six City.
It's true. It is true. And with that, we have our grand finals. It is going to be a TVP between Gumiho and Astrea.